understand that everyone is a worshiper, not only the singers. Come also and contribute. We say it starts from a place of personal worship, and then the personal worship feeds into the corporate worship. Think that God was not there in the place when maybe you were the one who was not there. Yes, good day. We are here as well, continuing with second episode on worship. I'm here, Beganja, as your host, and continuing with my friend Bethel. If you missed this first episode, please go back to the first episode to understand personal worship before you come to corporate worship. It's nice, yes, to know corporate worship, but focus is personal worship, please. So, with that said, as we have touched on what worship is and who is to worship, and in the first episode where we learned that every Christian is a worshiper of God, and it is only God that is to be worshipped. And now, we just want to bring it within the community, within the church, where within the church, basically what we call corporate worship. First of all, what is corporate worship? First, maybe we can start there, just to explain a bit as to what we mean when we are saying corporate worship. Thank you, Vekonja. Well, I understand corporate worship as the word says, we are worshiping in cooperation as a community together in one place. Yes, under the same roof, with the same goal, with the same mind, same intention. Basically, that's how I would define corporate worship. As the body of Christ, as believers. Okay, so it's a whole thing of being together as believers and worshiping together. And if I'm not wrong, this is what we call church today, right? Basically, that's church. Yes. So within this, I know some of them, these things you have touched them in our previous episode as well, but I just want us to, when we are talking about corporate worship, what do we really mean? What are some ways that people can express worship together as a community? I know music is one of them, but rather than music, what else can we do as corporate worship together as a congregation? All right, yes, so as you said, coming from the understanding that we established that worship is not limited to singing, right? So this then brings in everyone, right, as a worshiper. So when we come to church to worship God on a Sunday, right, having done our personal worship, right, there is a place we have to meet and edify each other. The Bible says that iron sharpens iron. We come each with their own expressions of worship. We come, we put it together, and as a community, we glorify God. And that can take different shapes. It can be one who comes to church and greets people, welcoming people as they come in. And what is key here to understand when you're talking of corporate worship is it's your heart's posture that we are looking for that matters. It's not the act in itself. I think that is what we were trying also to demystify from the first episode, moving on to here, that let's take away our focus from this is worship, that is worship, that, and develop an understanding whereby whatever that I am doing, like we said, worship previously is how we respond, how our response finds expression in different actions, right? So how we respond to a loving God, how we glorify our Father within the community setup, what you're doing there, you're worshiping God. So now that can be, like we said, greeting, welcoming people. That can be the one who's cleaning in the church. That can be one in the media team.
different churches have different, we may call them departments. Each and every department in church is a worship department. All of them are worshiping God, right? We want to remove that misconception of saying only the ones in front holding the mic and releasing some notes and rhythm, right? They are the ones that are worshiping. Even so, we call this the Christian liturgy. We call liturgy, basically it's the order of how we do things and worship and approach things on a Sunday, right? Everything that is part of our liturgy has to worship God. There isn't anything that is to find place on the Sunday program liturgy that is not worship, basically. So that's how best I can answer this question. What has to be done? What what worship is in community setup is we have to set it up in a way whereby whatever we are going to do with everyone on a Sunday, be it from the devotion in the morning, the ones that sing, that welcome, that clean, whatever that is done, it has to be set up in a way that it's worshiping God. And we have to put that understanding in the people when they are doing it, because normally there isn't that understanding in our churches. When someone is just standing at the door, they're just doing it, but they're just standing at the door. They're just welcoming people. No, you are worshiping, bro. You are worshiping as you are welcoming people. You are worshiping God, right? As you are, whatever you do to church. I don't know. There's different things people do on a Sunday service communally. That is worship. If you're doing it from meaning hearts and for the glory of God, that is the key.
Good. Thanks, man. So that means that every act of service that we are doing in our services at church, our worship. So whatever we are doing in the church has to worship God. So so if you are doing something within the church, ask yourself, is it a task, or are you really just doing it because you have to do it, or are you doing it because you're worshiping God, you are giving glory unto God? As you're greeting the people at the door, are you really portraying God's love to these people, or is this another thing to do?
Yes, and because it is very possible to go to church and come back home without having worship to God. And sadly, it's happening.
Yeah, no.
Go to church, go back home, and you haven't worshipped. You have sang, and still you didn't worship God. So, yeah.
Yep. So it's harsh, né? Just to hear that you can go to church and not go worship God and come back home and thinking, yeah, that day was rough. You did the best, but nothing really that you have done. It was for God's glory. Yeah. So as we, yeah, I know today within this whole episodes we have been trying to run away from the music aspect of this, but within this I want us to move to the music aspect of this. What is the role of music within the church?
All right. So, music is, to me, a central piece in our worship. Remember, we say that music or singing is not worship. It's a vehicle through which we worship. It's a means by which we worship. And for me, a very important one, because firstly, being a worshiper, a singer, a musician myself, I it comes easily for me to worship God in that way. Right? If I want worship to find expression in me, I open my mouth, a song comes out, right? And so that is the role that music plays. It helps to, like as Africans, right? Naturally, we are people of rhythm, basically, right? That's why you see Africans can sing, can dance, can move. We are people that are rhythmic. It's in us. We are blessed. Of course, not everyone can dance. Of course, not everyone can sing, but if I'm to generalize, it is within us. It's in us So when we meet, even in our families, we sing,
Yes.
right? We dance, right? So it is very important for someone, an African like me, who going to church and expressing my love to God through that music, then, right? Because it's something that comes to me. It's a gift God really gave to me for me to relate, to connect to Him by, right? So music helps us to connect to God. I mean, this is from the Bible. We can see David.
Yes.
He is our example when we talk of worship and we talk of music. David, he would play his instruments, the lyre, and spirits that would be bothering King Saul would depart. And whenever Saul was depressed and bothered by a spirit, he would call David. David plays an instrument with the strings, and that spirit would depart. Right? So music helps us to, I can say it helps us to bridge the gap between the physical and the spiritual world. Because worship is spiritual, it's a spiritual activity because our God is spirit, and those that worship Him must worship Him in spirit and in truth. Right? So, how then do physical beings worship a spiritual God? We have to do it in spirit. And music then helps us to bridge. Right? It's one of the things that help us to bridge and to connect. And for me, personally, even I find it easier to connect, to God spiritually through music when I sing. And communally, that is a tool we can make use of to connect to God as well.
Great. So music as a community helps us to bridge that sort of like the spiritual side of things, and as well, like I was just when you're talking, I was just thinking as well the whole aspect of being together, united with one heart,
Yes.
and just adoring God for who He is, and just reflecting in one accord, in that, just expressing the unity that we are called towards as well in one spirit. That's the beauty of it. But yeah, just something that because I love music, but I'm not quite a singer, so that's why. But with that said, just want us to look into what is this? I was thinking of, when we talk about the whole thing of music, right? Can anyone sing within the worship team, as we call it? Anyone from anywhere be part of the worship team and worship God?
Well, it depends on what you mean by anyone from anywhere. I mean,
Okay.
is this person a believer? Because I don't believe non-believers can worship. I just don't believe it. They can listen to worship music, but they cannot worship.
Yes, I just wanted to bring across that point as well. Like, today you see someone that is in the praise and worship, but truly they haven't dealt with the personal worship first. You see where I'm going? Yeah. Just, can one really worship God if you yourself know you are not a Christian, first of all? That can be one of them. Secondly, you personally know that you don't have a personal relationship with Jesus, but you are in the praise and worship. What are you like? Can that happen? Is that possible?
Well, let me deal with the easy one first. Somebody who worships but is not a believer, that one is not a worshiper and cannot worship God. Unfortunately, that's my conviction. Like we were saying before, God is spirit. You only worship Him in spirit, right? And we are only joined together by God's Spirit when we give our lives to Him. It means somebody who has not given his life to God, they are not joined with Him in spirit. They are not connected to God. They cannot worship Him. Of course, they can sing worship songs. Of course, they can say the words. They can say all the right things. Yes, God is good. God is. They can do all the right things, but there isn't that connection there. So that person is they don't have, they cannot worship God. Of course they can, but I don't believe that it's a worship that, like we said, that is holy and acceptable. Remember we talked about Romans 12, that worship has to be holy, pleasing, acceptable, which is a reasonable service. And if you're an unbeliever, I don't know how they can produce holy and pleasing worship for God. That's the first one. Secondly, they are a Christian, they're born again, but they don't have a life of personal worship, right? That one is tricky. That one is very tricky because, yes, can it happen? Yes, it can happen. It's happening, right? It's unfortunately worshippers or people that sing, that is express worship by singing, through singing, they really are attacked by the devil a lot. I'm one of them. I know that this ministration is really fought by the enemy, right? Because it's the main vehicle we are using in our churches to connect. So the devil really targets that area so that he breaks that connection, or he tries, at least he tries to do that. He cannot break it. I mean, it's established, but he tries to distract and to hinder. So I wouldn't encourage someone who is a worshiper to go and do communal community worship, corporate worship, if they don't have a life of personal worship. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, you cannot take people to a place where you've never been, right? So in corporate worship, you want to take people closer to God, in God's presence. If you go to, it should be Colossians 3:16. It talks of coming before God with songs, with hymns, with spiritual songs, right? How can you have spiritual songs when you yourself are living a life that is not complying to what the Spirit calls for? If you're not in step, walking in step with the Spirit, walking in the Spirit. So of course, because your worship comes sometimes from a place of gift, and the gift is given by God. You can go and sing, yes, impress, put in on a show, but it's not going to edify you as a person. And the beauty about God is you can actually edify other people, right? But yourself, your life will not progress, you will not grow in the Spirit, and you will not get anything from God. The Bible says it. I mean, if you're a hypocrite, right, you cannot be pleasing, your worship cannot be pleasing before God. Yeah.
Good. Thanks for answering that, because I wasn't prepared to answer that part, but yeah. So as we conclude, I just want us to, I know you have really been questioned, like had a challenge in this way of this question. I know when I was in the praise and worship, this was just the worst question I never wanted, or the worst expression that I never wanted people to use. Like, how do you respond when one says that, I was at church, but the worship wasn't taking me there. Yeah, like it wasn't taking me into God's presence, man. Like the worship was really lacking. So how do you respond to that, in a sense, and just as well, how can one depend solely when you come to church, be dependent solely on the music in order to feel God's presence, or see Kusha, you have arrived in God's presence?
All right. I hope I understood you correctly. If I'm answering in the wrong direction, you can tell me back. But the first one on how do you respond when someone says, no, I didn't feel it today. The worship was just down. Well, of course, there's actually another side to it, where actually someone comes and says, wow, you were amazing today. It's also equally a challenge. I actually struggled more with that one. Like, wow, you are so great. Oh my word, you can sing. You really brought the spirit down. I'm like, okay. That actually, actually made me more uncomfortable. But anyway, answering what you say, well, for me personally, I take it as a challenge, because when I'm singing, I really want to connect people to the into or usher people, right? Usher, I think is the word, into the presence of God. And I also understand that it's not me who does it, it's the Spirit of God within me. But I can always put myself in a position where I can be used by the Spirit to do that. I think it's Second Timothy, I think it's Second Timothy 2, yes. It talks of one preparing themselves as a vessel that is available for the master's use. So as a worshiper, that is my goal, to make myself a vessel that is, if I can say, usable, right? A vessel of honor that is ready for the master's use. That should be the posture of my heart as a worshiper. Am I ready for God? If He wants to minister to His people, can He do it through me? Right? And when that doesn't happen and someone says it to me, that helps me then as a buffer to say that, okay, I have done what God placed in my heart to do. If there's someone there who feels like it did not really catch it, then it's not me, really, because I am doing this firstly for God, and I'm not depending solely on myself, on my talent. It's not a gospel show. Okay, not a gospel show. It's not just a show. Sadly, sometimes gospel shows are shows. But it's not just a show. Yeah. I'm not putting in a show, right? When I'm singing, I'm actually, in as much as I want you to connect, I'm also striving to connect to His presence, right? And if it doesn't happen for some individual or individuals, then I just humbly receive it, thank them for the feedback, and go back and try to always reposition myself, that thing I was talking about of being a vessel that is ready for the master's use. I keep on ensuring that I'm ready to be used by the master, right? And I know there is somebody else who would have found it blessing, the Spirit uplifting for them, could have touched someone's life by God's grace in a positive way. So yeah, I just take it humbly and present it before God and ask God to keep on helping me to bring forth His people into His presence and usher them in His presence, because I want everyone to go along. If there's one person who is left behind, I'm not happy, right? Because it is my desire that everyone experiences God through the ministration of my singing. Everyone experiences worship, because we can sing and not experience worship. But I want everyone to experience worship when we sing as a team. That is the goal, that is the desire by God's grace.
Good. Thanks. So just to add on that, like how would you encourage someone out there that goes to church and they're like, that goes to church and they're like, yeah, I wasn't feeling it. Like, should our worship, basically when it comes to corporate, be dependent more on the music? I don't even. Yeah. Or like the whole thing of like, my spirit wasn't there. You have all this good Christian words that they use. I haven't really touched. That within that, how would you encourage someone that is out there and that goes to church with such a mentality?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's about reprogramming our minds as believers. If we come to church with an understanding that we are all worshippers, worshiping God, I'm going to worship and contribute to the worship experience. There won't be place for you then to point at someone to be responsible for your experiencing the move of God. That is the mentality that I would want to encourage us to inculcate in ourselves and in others. That's when I'm going to church. Firstly, I should not put expectations on people, right? The expectation should be solely on God. And whoever He may use that day to minister to us. Be it the person who's going to sing, be it the person who's going to usher, be it the person who's going to preach, be it the person who's going to be greeting at the gate. Right? My expectation is to God and whomever He is going to choose to use on the day to help us in our corporate worship. So, because that comes from a place of someone who is pushing away responsibility from themselves to other people. Because if they're saying, no, I didn't feel it, most probably they didn't do anything in the service. Most of the times they didn't contribute. And then we're saying, no, once we now understand that everyone is a worshiper, not only the singers, come also and contribute with your personal, remember we said it starts from a place of personal worship, and then the personal worship feeds into the corporate worship, right? So we want everyone to come on a Sunday with something. Even the Bible says it, like, when we meet, let's come, someone with a hymn, someone with a psalm, someone, yes, with Thanksgiving, right? That should be the condition of our hearts when we are coming to church. That will help us then not to think that God was not there in the place, when maybe you were the one who was not there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a deep attack. So maybe you're not there. Oh, yeah, no, thanks a lot, Bethel. This is really just inspiring and as well as encouraging. From the first episode that we did on personal worship and as well now corporate worship, which has been great in understanding this whole thing of worshiping God. As my final word on this is just the whole thing of, your role or your responsibility within the church means a lot, and you are there to encourage the next person as well. You don't know who we will touch. Some of us came to Christ because God used an usher, not the preacher, an usher at the gate, yes, to ask me, yes, just a question of, where are you going? Wow. The service event started, and that brought me back the next day to church, and that's the same day that I got saved. Wow. So you don't know. That is amazing. You don't know your role, and you don't know your ways on how you're worshiping God as corporate is influencing someone else. So let's please take up our roles and totally surrender to God as He's using us within corporate worship as well, not to just try to avoid everything. So, Bethel, thank you for your time. Feel honored hearing from the masters.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor for me to be here.
Thanks a lot. You out there, please do comment, share this with your friend, and as well subscribe and like, and please do share your thoughts as well out there. What do you think of corporate worship? What is corporate worship to you? And as well, please don't please, if you're out there as well and you wanna reach out to us, please do reach out. And you wanna come share your wisdom, we are open. If you wanna share your side of what is worship and just your thoughts as well, and just to educate the public out there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for watching. I hope you have learned a lot, and please do not forget to subscribe and like if you like what you have heard, and also remember to share it with a friend so that a friend can share with another friend who will learn from it. And do comment below with questions if you have any, and we are going to handle it for you.